All right. The one thing I've noticed, and I know it's a minor thing, but like with the with Nimmo hitting leadoff, when you've had Langford hitting second, which pushes Seager to third. And I think I've mapped this out like over 140 games. Based on his numbers in second and third, it might amount to about a 15 plate appearance difference over the course of a year. For you, that does not outweigh the idea of having that balance left, right, left.
Obviously, you want your best hitters hitting more often. I've said that before. I believe we have our best options are going left, right, left, just for the matchup on the other side. And obviously the 4-hole hitter, most likely Berger at this point, that's a big position in the lineup as well. So we can continue that, left, right matchup. I always look at it from the opposing dugout on what it would look like if I was trying to navigate our lineup. And I feel like that is the best option for us right now. Now things can change, obviously, and then do you put two lefties in the middle of the lineup somewhere and then flip them out at some point based on what they have in their bullpen? So I think the middle of the lineup will look differently throughout the year, just depending on what the other side has. A few years ago, the Cubs had the entire bullpen was right-handed, so it made it easier to put together a lineup. There's not many of those teams anymore, right? So I think it's just it's more attractive to us to split up the righties and lefties.
I mean, 15 less plate appearances, one every 10 days, I guess.
You said over how many games?
140.
You sign me up for 140 to 150 games of those guys, I will take the 15 less at bats.
And the only reason it's a question for me is like, you look at Seager's time here, the great preponderance of at bats have been in the number 2 spot versus the number 3 spot. That's not there's no difference in his numbers from one to the other. There's no issue there.
Getting him up in the first inning is what I think is the most important part. If it's 1, 2, or 3, doesn't really matter to me. The hope is one of those guys are on base when Corey Seager is up.
We touched on this just a little bit yesterday after the game. I know it's not ever a great situation to try and elaborate on anything, but what did you see going on with Alexis Diaz, and with the time you have left in camp, how do you address that?
Yeah, it was a challenging day for him yesterday. There's no really way to sugarcoat it, just because he kept missing on the arm side and never really made an adjustment, tried to get back on the glove side. The slider also missed arm side. Sometimes you try to get him back in the zone by spinning it, just so, because the release point is the same slot, but it gets back into the zone. It did not. So that part was tough for him and for us to see, because he's been working so hard at it. And it did look like the confidence just wasn't there either. So I think there's a lot to work on both sides of it to try to get him back to where he needs to be. But we are getting late in camp. It's no longer February 20th something, right? It's
March 9th.
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming quick now, and so we're at the point that you have to make real decisions, and their bullpen competition is getting real, and we have to make tougher decisions. So you want to make so you got to get these guys back on track as quick as possible, if there's still options to be on the team.
I know Evan Carter came in a little heavier, a little stronger, and he looks it on the field. Does he look it to you? I mean, he looks it to me.
I think so. I also think he's young, and I mean, you have kids; they grow, and at 23 years old, he's still not into his man strength yet. So I think it's a combination of him having a real full off season of health and getting to lift and do the things he wanted to do, not just try to recover, but to get stronger. And I also think he's just getting older and more physical. So I think it's a combination of things. But he's in a really good spot.
Yeah. Is there anything else you need to see from him at this point, other than just maybe good health, from that standpoint?
Yeah, just I think keeping him on the field, just like we've said, for a number of guys, is going to be the the goal of really our season, because if we keep these guys on the field, we have a good chance. I know the depth will be tested at some point, but to get these guys on the field the most of the games will be, better than not. Will be better for us than not. But I do feel like he's going to get an opportunity to play, on an everyday level for the most part. I do feel like some guys you got to protect against, some like elite lefties or whatever it is, and those might be some good off days to have because you do have some right-handed complements on there. But as far as like the left-handed, left on left, he's such a good defender. He can really run the bases. So I've said this before, if he mixes in a walk and mixes in a stolen base and a run scored and plays elite defense, that's also super valuable. So I think it's not just like he doesn't have to slug the lefties. It's just put together good at bats like he does against the righties, and I think he has a good chance to try to become an everyday player like he wants to be.
Are you getting any more resolution about whether he'll be a center fielder or left fielder? Or?
I don't. I like them both out there. So it's they're both really good athletes, and they're flying around the outfield and not doing anything to say that they can't play center field. We know they both can play center field. We're just trying to figure out again, and I know I sound redundant, but I promise you this is the truth. How do we keep them both healthy? And what does that mean, center field and left field for one or the other? I don't really know yet. So we're trying to just map that out and see what it looks like.
That would be a good sales point, though, right? When you're talking to him, it's like we want to try to keep you on the field here, so maybe every once in a while we move you over here. Yeah,
I think so, and it could be ballpark adjusted too, depending on what that looks like in left and right, left and center field, and to get guys kind of those days off, so to speak. I mean, Fenway's much different than Pittsburgh, for instance, right? And so, what does that look like? I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do things and not just like, this is how it is, black and white.
Sure.
So I like to put words in your mouth.
Okay.
Probably already know that about me. Are you saying that you're, with Evan, that you're willing to go into the season giving him a chance to play every day against both righties and lefties?
I think there's a chance that he gets to earn that opportunity. He's shown that in spring training. He's even though the results that has been not like hits, but they have been balls like hit on a line and really good spring training outs and at bats and walks. And again, he's running the bases. Like yesterday was, bloop into left field and turned in a single into a double. So he's a difference maker on the field and a winning player. And so I do think you give him a shot, definitely more often than not. Against lefties. Again, like there's certain lefties that are just really tough against righties, against lefties. So you do have to pick your spots for sure. And I think you have conversations with these players before and give them the reasons why, yes or no. And it's just lines of communication, making sure that we're all on the same page.
But that sounds like it's something that like you've seen enough significant progress that you're willing to go down this route.
Well, he's a young player, like we've talked about earlier. I mean, he was so good in the 23 World Series, got brought up, pretty early in his career, early in his development, and didn't have a chance to, really hit a ton in the minor leagues against left-handed pitching. And it was like go time. He was hot. You keep him going, and you end up winning a World Series. I mean, that's what you want. So I totally get it. But a lot of these guys have, hundreds of at bats against in the minor leagues, and he didn't have that, and then he got injured a lot. So he's still super young. So I still think that he has still can be an everyday player. There's no doubt in my mind. I think Brandon's been really good for him also. So I think I still think he's got a ton of room to grow as a player, and he's showing why he should get some at bats for against left-handed starters.
You talked about the other day about getting guys to go back to be what they were, and of course the chances of getting all of them to do that. So, but if you get a guy like him because of all the things he can do, then that's really a big step up, right? It
is, yeah, and you're right. It's maybe I'm delusional, and I'm trying to make sure that I get, because that's part of my job, is to try to get guys back on track and where they should be, and If I didn't think that, I'm probably not the right guy for the job. So I hate to label guys this, in March 9th to say they're not going to do something. But yeah, this is a premier player that was significant in that World Series run a few years ago, and the injuries happened. So to get him to be able to play 140 plus would be huge for our team, and could change the projections really quick for what this team could be. I also believe in run prevention, and the run prevention with him out there is significant as well. So he's a really attractive piece for us to get to where we want to get to. And you're right, we haven't seen, 60-ish games or so the last couple of years. I mean, it's not a ton of games. So, to get him back, I think, is much different for him in his career than some of the other guys where we want to, you've had really good years, like 10 years worth, or 8 years worth or 5 years worth to get them back on track. This guy's still trying to figure out who he is as a major league player, which I think is going to be a really good one.
And maybe I was reading too much into it, but I thought the throw yesterday was an awkward position, but it had a lot on it. It looked really good coming out of his hand. Is he even throwing a little bit better, you think?
Yeah, I just think he's just a really good baseball player, and he feels good for the first time. So a lot of things that were happening health-wise that were just hindering him, and I think he wants to put that to rest. I think he just wants to be a baseball player and not have people question him, or all of us really hoping he's healthy. I think he just wants to play baseball and not have to worry about that anymore, because you have that, I'm sure, in back of his mind all the time, and I think he just wants to go out and play and prove that he's a really good option for us every day.
But this is all you can prove in spring training, is prove that you should get the opportunity to do something in the regular season. And so what I'm getting out of you is that he's proven that he should get that opportunity.
Yeah, but I've said this before. It's just hard in spring training because sometimes you're facing a Double-A left-handed pitcher. You just don't know what you're seeing a lot of times. And the guys on the mound too, they're facing Double-A hitters at times. So, but I will say that the at bats look like he has a real good chance against them. And that's what you're trying to see is do you have no chance against a lefty? It's a much different conversation. He has a real shot. He's driving the ball to right or pull side. He's driving it to left, staying up the middle. He's not punching out. Deep counts, which that's kind of his calling card. He's 3-2 Carter or whatever his nickname was a few years ago, because it was always 3-2 counts. So there's a lot that goes on in the game because with him in the game, because if he gets 8 pitches, let's say 6 to 8 pitches per at bat, that also helps get him out of the game. So I just think there's value of him it being in the lineup.
Along those same lines, has Josh Smith done the same thing?
So I think that both of those guys, you protect against certain real starters, right? And then I also think this is a game where it's a know-how league, not a figured-out league, and we're trying to win, and both guys will get opportunities, and then you see what it is here in a month or so, and I don't want to put a deadline on anything, but there's options on the bench that you can utilize, and that's how this game works. And so you kind of earn that opportunity. They've both earned the opportunity so far, in my opinion. But there's still a couple more weeks in spring training, or I guess less than that. And then the course of a season, you have to utilize your bench too. It can't just be 9 guys. And so keeping the bench, giving them starts so they can be real options off the bench in a pinch hit opportunity is important to me. Because I just don't think you can get one at bat and expect production once a week. They have to play so you can get that production later on in the season, later on in the game too.
100%. It's just there's a difference between a straight platoon and trending towards giving these guys the opportunity to say we can play against most lefties, if not. There's tough lefties.
There's tough lefties, but yeah, I mean Haggerty's playing second base today, so there's options, and then JJ hasn't taken at bat in a while, so what's third base? What's that looking like? So we just have to figure out different scenarios and prepare for worst case scenarios, I should say, as well.
Around this time last year, when you were coming in occasionally, this was about the time that I think there was some concern about approaches at the plate, and it was starting to be voiced. There a difference in the conversation right now about offensive approach?
I think yesterday was a good example of who we're trying to be. Berger taking that 3-2 pitch for a walk, and then Evan hitting a home run right after that. Can we get more of that than the ground ball, double play ball, and then it looks from big inning to hopefully we get a run? I think that's significant. So more of that. Now, I don't know if we're going to see whoever that was on the mound every, in the rotation. But that's the type of at-bats that you're looking for to grind them out. And if he strikes out right there or not, it's still 6 or 7 pitches, right? And then you pass the baton to get to Evan and not hit into a double play going outside the strike zone. I think that's what we're trying to get into, of being what you talked about the other day, of more in zone for guys like Jake Berger and these guys, so they can smash the baseball inside the strike zone and not get outside the strike zone. And then all of a sudden you're looking on deck with 2 outs coming up to the plate instead of no outs, bases loaded, or 1 out, bases loaded at the time.
There's more content with the approaches to this point.
I'm more content with it. Yeah, I think so. I think it's been really good. I mean, there's some guys that are still fighting a little bit right now, for sure. But I think we have chased a lot less, at least our main dudes, outside the strike zone than maybe we had last year. But I was only here a couple days last year. I can't give you what it really looked like. So I was here 7 days of spring, so it's tough for me to give you
were around for conversations. You were involved in some conversations, so you're not completely ignorant. I'm just.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're going. I can't give you a real comparison, just because I just wasn't here all the time. It just wasn't fair for me to be part of those conversations, quite honestly, because I respected that coaching staff, and I didn't want to give some hot take, because I hated that when I was in that position too. So I was in the background.